So again, here we are standing in Front Street of Dardanelle. Here's what happened with what was going on and why my family left the small area of retailing in Dardanelle, Danville, and Marlton, Arkansas. There are several things that occurred. Number one is that as we are looking right now, we're looking to the east. In the east is the Arkansas River. Now this looks kind of nice today. It looks like a park. Except in the 1960s, it was old businesses that were no longer there. Like many towns that have died and there's just buildings still left there in a deteriorating state. We had a good downtown area and there were businesses a little along that side, but most of the retail was on the west side. And my father's idea was to get everyone who was on the east side of Front Street to move to the vacancies on the west side of Front Street. And the idea was now we would have a full Front Street, and what had happened with traffic on Front Street is that, as it is today, it's only one way going to the south, because they decided to accommodate more parking by putting angle parking instead of the single direction parking that we had before. Well, with one-way streets going this way, if we could take and move all the businesses over to here, was the idea my father had, we could then take and have two-way traffic on Front Street. We could have traffic parking on both ways. This would be great. And then there was this one other issue, and it's represented by that little thing right there, and another one over there, and another one there, and all the way up and down Front Street. These are places where there were parking meters. One of the things that got my father into somewhat trouble with his fellow merchants at one point, or with the city fathers, was a promotion, one of our power promoting ideas that I teach. And that he came up with a piece of cardboard that was about this big. And my job was to take this piece of cardboard that had been printed. A local artist by the name of J.R. Gray, whose brother owned the IGA store next to ours, had drawn the artwork. It was a smiley face, and it says, "Shay's department store in Dardanelle would like to invite you to come and shop with us. And we'd like to pay your parking." And the eyes of the piece of paper were 2 pennies, 2 new shiny pennies that I had glued onto there with a rubber cement. And I had a job of putting it on the windshield of each and every one of the cars at various times parking here on Front Street. Well, this kind of caused an uproar. My father had said, these things need to go away to begin with. But since they're not going away, we'll do it this way instead, by giving away free parking. And I remember that it was Ben Burnett who went to First Methodist here in Dardanelle as we did. His brother Fred was my Sunday school teacher as well. And they said, we can't stop having parking meters. Why, what will Ben do? That'll take away Ben's job. That the whole aspect of the parking meters was to generate enough revenue to take and pay Ben's job. And yet my father said he remembered watching Ben repeatedly walking down the street and recognizing a car in front that was parked someplace, and the meter had expired, and he'd pull a couple pennies out of his own pocket and put them in and flip the dial, and now they could continue to park. And he says, this doesn't make sense to us. Why in the world would you take and let him ticket people as he felt like ticketing it? So this was a part of our problem here. Parking meters, liked, disliked, and old empty stores here. Yet as you look in Dardanelle today, here's a gazebo. You can see across the beautiful Arkansas River, and just as we started filming, there was a barge with loads of sand going down, and there are boats that can go up and down the Arkansas River. And just to the north and west of us here is the beautiful Lake Dardanelle, which is 34,000 acres of some of the best fishing there is to be found anywhere in North America. Well, there was another promotion that was to be and didn't happen. It was of great concern to my father. And then part of where it was to entail was a building that was right over here behind us. What is now the Dardanelle City Hall was for years and years the Joy Theater. In my time, the Joy Theater was opened on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and Sunday afternoons. And well, let's just say the movies were so old that I can remember at one point in time my sister going to the movies on a Saturday night and her coming home and telling us the movies she had seen, and it was the same when we were watching on TV that night. That's how second, third, fourth run was the movies at that point in time that was here at the Joy. Well, in the 1960s, there was a movie made. It featured John Wayne and Glenn Campbell, the singer. Glenn Campbell, who comes from Arkansas, as he used to say in the opening of each one of his TV shows, the Glenn Campbell Variety Hour, he'd start picking and playing and saying, "Hi, my name's Glenn Campbell and I'm from Delight, Arkansas," which is another part of the state. But they made a movie. It was called True Grit. And True Grit was based upon a true story as told by a young lady whose name was Maddie Lou Roth. And in the movie, Maddie Lou Roth repeatedly says, "Hi, my name is Maddie Lou Roth from near Dardanelle in Yell County, Arkansas. And my dad said, this is it, this is our ticket. Let's take and use the Joy Theater. Let's bring John Wayne if we can. Let's definitely go get Glenn Campbell and have them come and be here in our town. And let's promote the fact that this is history and you can come see parts of history. And let's point out the various areas in our county here that were landmarks for this particular movie." Of course, there was also a follow-up movie that John Wayne made that was called Rooster Cogburn, the name of the character that he played in the movie. And it didn't happen. And at that point in time, I think my father was fairly broken with regard to his spirit of doing this. We wouldn't change across the street. We wouldn't take and get rid of the parking meters. And we wouldn't do something at the Joy Theater to promote a big movie. And my father said, "Look what's happened here. They built a bypass of 22. Traffic can now get to 7 going south. They can get to 27 to go over to Danville. And they can take and get where they want to go without having to ever come to downtown Dardanelle. The only way they got to get close is if they want to go on Highway 7 to go to Russellville and go up into the Ozarks Mountains. That's the only way." And he says, what you're going to see happen is there are going to be businesses built on Union Street. And Union Street expanded and went all the way out to the edge of the bypass. And he says one of those big box stores, and he was originally thinking it was going to be Gibson stores, because there was a Gibson store over in Russellville. That Gibson store was going to take and come and put a store location out there in the very place that today is Walmart. It's what happened in the downtown. It's an item of changes in downtown that bring back to me very painful memories from the 1960s. Things that as I work today with Main Street programs, I don't want them to see this happening in a place. I want to see them to benefit from the experience and the things that I have seen happen, and those merchants who are in town who are progressive and interested, and not those merchants that we all call the cave dwellers, citizens against virtually everything. Those type of people, the cave dwellers of the 60s that my father ran into. That's what's happening in Main Street all across America. It happened in the 60s and it continues to today. That's the challenge that we've got, is to take and find ways to capture people, and that's what we do. Boyce talks about the town of Dardanelle, and he tells you that the store, then known as Boyce Brothers, was in a town of about 1,800 people. And in the story he goes on to say that in 1922 there were absolutely no paved roads in Dardanelle, and there were few paved roads in Dardanelle until about 1927. Almost all the sidewalks were of the dirt variety until about 1920. It's interesting that the population was only 1,800 people long back in the late 1800s. In the years that I grew up and went to school in Dardanelle, the town had a population of something about 2,400 people. And then today, as we come back and look at Dardanelle, there's now over 4,000 people in Dardanelle. There's more people than ever before. It's a growing town in some very different ways.